Hey guys, this is Mark again. I wanted to make a quick video. There's some super confusion online and there's some misrepresentation between optics and how they work and how they fit and what will work and maybe what won't work. I wanted to clear the air on that. I wanted to explain it a little bit better. This is a typical RMSC socket, 407K, EPS carry, Romeo 0, Defender CCW, Swamp Fox Sentinel. The list kind of goes on and on. And the confusion that we see online is that the Delta Point Pro socket, right, and the RMSC both use the same socket. Well, that is just not correct. There is some truth to that, and there's some non-truth to that. So let's kind of break that down for a second here. The idea is there are some guns out on the market that we find, like some of the P320s that are out there that are cut from the factory to take a Leupold Delta optic, Delta Point Pro, the Defender XL, the CompDot, the eFlex. The list kind of goes on and on. Now the new Romeo RS. Those all use the same Leupold Delta socket, right? So they all use the same cut. And what we see is that people will take a RMSC optic, kind of like the newer Romeo RS, and they will fit it onto that slide because the screw holes are the same. So if you were to kind of put these side by side, you're going to find out that the screw holes and the width and the spacing is the same. That does not mean that it's a good fit, right? It doesn't mean that just because the Romeo 0 or the 407K or any of the other ones use a sharing footprint with the screw holes, doesn't mean that it's a good fit. It does mean that there's space in that socket, behind it, there's going to be space in front of it. It's not going to be a very well supported optic when we're talking about mounting the smaller optic onto the larger socket. Now, so that's the truth behind it, right? So that's the, hey, I heard that the RMSC will fit the Leupold Delta footprint, and that's true. We also see the, hey, I heard that the Delta Point Pro is the same as an RMSC socket. That is not true. That's not even close to being true, right? So it's sort of like the bigger of the two optics will support both, but of course the smaller cut will not support the larger optic. What I mean by smaller cut is the P365, the optic cuts that would come out on the market for, say, the Glock 43X, the Hellcat, any of those that would technically have an RMSC socket will not fit a Leupold Delta. So let's kind of just show that in comparison. So this is, once again, an RMSC socket. That's going to fit something similar to that. It's a nice fit, right? And that's what we've cut it for, which is the RMSC socket. This is the Delta Point Pro one, and as you can see, it's not going to fit. It's not even close to being able to fit. So that's kind of where, once again, the confusion is. If you were to have a slide that is pre-cut for a Leupold Delta, yes, you are able to install an RMSC optic onto that socket. I do not recommend that, once again, for multiple reasons, because as you take a look at how big this optic is, and we'll just kind of lay them out side by side, you can see there's a big difference here. So if we're just kind of put this on top of here and we align those screw holes, which is right about there, this is just a rough comparison, you're going to see that that is how much of the existing socket would have been left over on the gun. And then, of course, we see the same thing up here. There's no support on the front. Now, the argumentative point is that the bottom of these optics have recessed holes for pegs, and they do. And what I can tell you is I do believe that those will align and fit over each other. So if you're running a socketed gun that does support and has these posts, you probably could get away with it. If you're just talking about a cut that's like this and it doesn't run the posts, you're relying only on the screws to support the optic. Of course, we do posts around the screws. In this particular case, larger optics like an RMR, we would do posts in the front. And even on our Delta Point Pro or our Vortex Defender XL STs, CompDot, we would run the 4-post system. So we have a 4-post system in there and then the 2 screws. So on the larger optics, we're doing that as well. However, don't quote me, but I don't believe on the P320 factory cut sockets, they have any posts at all. there's several different versions. I think there's 4 different versions that come on that gun, just so you know. So I could be speaking out of turn, and you may say, no, mine has it. Well, there may be 3 other ones that do not have a post system designed for that. And the reason why is because their other optic, which is the Romeo, I believe it's the Romeo 1 Pro, does not utilize these same posts. Neither does the RMR. They have posts in different areas. So that would mean if they cut their gun for a Romeo 1 or a Pro, it won't work with the RS, right? So maybe newer guns are only being supported with the RS and the old ones are not. You know, maybe the originals are being supported with the Romeo 1 or Romeo 1 Pro. And that's why maybe we see that. But with that being said, hopefully there's some clarification here that once again, the screw holes are the same. You can mount this into this socket, recommended only if you're seeing posts. However, the backwards compatibility does not exist. It's never existed, and that's where a lot of that confusion does come in place online when they go, hey, I've got a XYZ slide. Can I run my Delta Point Pro on it? In this case, a Romeo RS, and the answer is no. No, you cannot. It will not fit the gun. The cut is not even going to support it anyhow. Like even if you were to put this up onto here, as close as you could see it here, we'd have to leave some metal left over, and look, there's nothing here. We've already lost the metal, so it won't. No doubt, this optic could be cut on this gun to the rear, removing the rear sight and relocating, but in this technical setup right here, it's not going to work. It's never going to fit that gun. So hopefully, guys, that sheds a little bit of light on the differences between them. I thought it was a great opportunity to make the video because we have both of the Romeo RSs, and I'm going to be quite honest with you. I think, personally speaking, I think this is a very stupid naming scheme because they're both called the Romeo RS and they're 2 different sizes. So I don't know why they didn't call them, something else. I mean, even Vortex is calling it the Vortex Defender CCW or the Vortex ST, which they both have, are so-called the same series of line of optics, but they've given them different names. In this particular case, maybe the box has a different name on it, but the optics themselves don't, which is no doubt going to cause some confusion when customers are looking at buying something and somebody makes a recommendation and says, well, get the Romeo RS. Well, which one is it, right? So once again, that's something that ease of product availability and sorting and sifting with the market is something that should be really taken into consideration when we're talking about naming schemes on optics and how do they fit with guns that are out there. How do those namings conflict with other optics that overlap that don't work? So once again, guys, hopefully this has been a little educational for you. And if you have any questions, let me know.